Hello and welcome. This is Columbia Basin Research's second video in a multi-part series on using Program PitPro. PitPro is a program created by Columbia Basin Research at the University of Washington School of Aquatic and Fisheries Sciences. PitPro is designed to translate raw PTAGIS PIT-tag data into usable capture histories for programs SURPH and ROSTER. PitPro also provides a variety of reports, including an error report, a travel timetable, and Cormack-Jolly-Seber estimates for further analysis. The logic of the program is updated continuously based on the latest PTAGIS site configuration, ensuring accuracy. Today in this second video, I'm going to show you how to configure the program to fit your needs and allow you to custom tailor the program to produce user-specific analyses. Let's start by firing up the program. Type PitPro into the search bar, click on it, and fire up the program. Maximize your window. The program opens with the Run Setup screen active. You can also see Files, Sites, Tag Screening, Adult Settings, Transportation, and Advanced Settings, which we will go through as they become necessary. If you happen to see a warning triangle like the one here, click on it to update Program PitPro to the latest PTAGIS site configuration, ensuring accuracy. Data files are searched for in the folder selected in the Data folder input box. The program will search in this folder for files having the recognized data field suffixes. You should pick whichever directory you've stored your data files in as the input. The output folder is where PitPro places results. This is also the folder in which the results manager searches for output. You should pick whatever directory you'd like to see your output files appear in. The Run Setup tab handles the definition of the runs, specifying the two required data files, tag and interrogation files, and optionally, one or both of the optional data files, mortality and recapture data. Data sets can be run as individual runs, consecutively, or grouped together to produce a capture history file with multiple populations. Multiple populations are not supported by roster and should only be used when generating SURPH capture history. The data input files are selected through a series of menus under the Run Config heading. These menus will only display files that are found in the folder pointed to by the Data folder setting, defined on the Files tab. Also, by default, the program looks to match suffixes for its respective data type. Interrogation data should end in OBS, tagging data in TAG, recapture data RCP, and mortality data MRT. In our circumstances, though, all data were saved as CSV files. You can uncheck the box, filter by file type, to load any file in the Data folder into each data menu. You can see here when I uncheck the box, it automatically loads in my two required files. I will have to add the optional ones myself. By using these menus and entering a population name, we can define our data set. The run is added to the Defined Runs table by clicking the Add Run button. The Defined Runs table contains a list of all the defined data sets that will be run when the program executes. The data file selections can be changed by right-clicking on the field and selecting a new file name from the resulting pop-up menu. A defined run can be removed by selecting the row and clicking on the Delete Run button. If you have multiple runs, defined runs can be executed either consecutively with separate output files or grouped into a single run by checking Combine Runs into One. When runs are executed consecutively, a separate capture histories file is generated for each run. When runs are grouped, a single file with individual capture histories within the file is generated. The reason you would want this type of file is that it allows modeling and SURPH between the various release groups, such as tests for equal survival and/or detection probabilities. Otherwise, there's no difference between the combined file and the individual capture history files. The prefix for the output files is normally taken from the population name for the run. When grouping runs together, since it is no longer obvious what to use as an output file prefix, the program uses the prefix composite, unless a specific prefix is provided. An alternate prefix can be provided by entering a name in the input box labeled prefix, located adjacent to the Combine Runs into One checkbox. The auxiliary output files, error, travel times, etc. will be separate files with a name based on the population name. Note that multiple populations in a single capture history file is only supported by SURPH and not by roster at this time. The Files tab provides configuration options for output files. The output of particular files can be switched on or off here. This is also the tab where the capture histories format is set. The program results can be customized by selecting which file types to output. The most important files are the capture history file, the errors file, and the detection date file. The detection date file is used by the results manager for calculating travel times. The sequence file is not necessary. It is for internal diagnostics and can be very large with 4 lines of output for every fish. It is generally advisable to leave this output file switched unchecked. PitPro will produce capture histories that are compatible with either SURPH version 1 or 2 or roster. Individual covariate data can be included in the SURPH output file formats. The data is input to PitPro via the tagging input file. When including covariate data, it is usually desirable to remove fish that are either missing the covariates or have a 0 for the covariate, depending on the type of data. Either is possible by checking remove zero-valued covariates and remove null-valued covariates. The Sites tab is where the fields that appear in the capture histories are defined. The release site is typically assumed to be upriver of the first juvenile site. In some cases, the fish are released directly into the bypass system of a dam, and instead of including all fish released into the bypass as the tag group, only the fish known to have exited the bypass into the river should be included. By checking the Site Release box, the release site is assumed to be the first defined juvenile site, and any fish not known to be in the river below the dam are removed from the tag group and ignored. Juvenile and adult sites are displayed in their respective menus. By selecting a site and clicking Add, the site is added to the list of capture history sites. The order of the sites in the capture history is defined by the order in which they appear in these lists, with juvenile sites preceding adult sites. To sort the sites in upriver to downriver order in the case of juvenile sites, and downriver to upriver order for the adult sites, click the Sort button. Sites can also be removed by right-clicking on them and selecting Remove. The next to last capture history site can be set to any one of the juvenile or adult sites that have been defined in the previous section. This indicates how far down survival may be estimated to. A capture site after the area you wish to estimate survival to is always required by PitPro. This is because if you don't detect a tag at the last site, you have no idea if it's because it's passed undetected or died prior to passage. This means that the last reach is actually estimating the probability of survival to and detection at the last site defined. If the next to last site is not currently defined as the next to last site, the site will be represented by the second to last field in the capture history, while any detections at subsequent defined sites will be pooled into the final capture history field. For a site to be pooled into the final capture history field, it must be defined as a selected site, even though it will not be represented individually in the capture history. If the last to last capture history site is set to the next to last defined site, then there will be a one-to-one correspondence between the defined sites and the capture history fields. The final field will not be pooled in this case. It will represent the final defined site instead. The next tab is tag screening. If a tag file contains multiple fish types, the settings on this tab may be used to select a species, run, and rearing type so that only fish matching the selected fish types will be included in the run. These are based on the PTAGIS PIT-tag specification document. Species 1 is Chinook, 2 is Coho, 3 Steelhead, 4 Sockeye. Run 1 is Spring, 2 Summer, 3 Fall. Rearing type Unknown, U, W is Wild, H, Hatchery. This allows for the download of a master tag file that can be used against multiple interrogation files. Set these settings to all to disregard fish type. Click on Adult Settings. When data includes adult detections, assume all juvenile observations should be unchecked. The main challenge becomes determining the migration year. Other issues include how to handle mini jacks, fish returning during the juvenile out-migration year, and how to manage residualizing fish. There's also a setting for using steelhead return year. Regarding steelhead return year, it is known that some adult steelhead overwinter within the hydro system during the upstream migration. This means that they initiate their upstream migration in one calendar year and complete it the following calendar year. To accommodate this life history trait, a steelhead return year is available as an alternative to the return defined by the calendar year. In accordance with the NMFS, we define the steelhead return year to run from July 1st through June 30th of the following calendar year. Under the steelhead return year setting, fish are removed if 1. They are detected on the known juvenile detector outside the migration year, 2. They are observed during the spring of the year following the juvenile out-migration and before July 1st of that year, or 3. They are detected as a mini-jack, for example, before the start of the adult return year. In general, fish are removed if they are detected on adult or juvenile detectors from January 1st through June 30th of the year following their juvenile migration year. In terms of stage determination, when processing mixed stage juvenile and adult observations, it is critical to know the age of the fish in determining whether a detection is a juvenile or an adult observation. It is insufficient to use detection location in determining stage because both juveniles and adults may be detected on the same observation monitors. There are two methods available for determining the stage of the fish: the migration year and the juvenile cutoff date. If a migration year is supplied but no juvenile cutoff date, the program will assign all observations during the migration year as juvenile observations and all observations in subsequent years into the adult category. The age is determined by the number of winters between migration and observation years, so that a fish observed in the year following the migration year will be in an ocean age class 1, etc. In this scenario, there will be no jack. The second method is to supply a juvenile cutoff date where all observations before this date are categorized as juveniles and all observations subsequent to the date as adults. If the fish is observed after the cutoff date, but during the same year as the cutoff date, assuming this to be the migration year, the fish will be categorized as a jack. PitPro requires the user to identify the treatment of jacks. See the box labeled Mini Jacks. Looking at the Mini Jacks box, a Mini Jack is defined for the purposes of Program ROSTER as an adult returning fish during its migration year. Mini Jacks can either be ignored or included in Ocean Age Class 1, in which case Mini Jack detections would be labeled with capital A or lowercase a if the fish was censored, as with the Ocean Age 1 fish. Moving on to adult fallback transformations. Since the capture history is designed to be sequential by location but not by time, fish that fall back will have an observation history that will need to be transformed to fit into the capture history framework. For instance, if a fish is detected at Bonneville Dam and then McNary Dam, falls back past both dams, and then is detected at Bonneville Dam again but not at McNary, and then finally at Lower Granite Dam, it is not clear whether the fish should have a capture history of 101 or 111. If last route is checked, the program will produce the first capture history, 101. But if any route is checked, the program will produce the second output, 111. Either is valid, but it is recommended to use the last route method when producing data files for use with Program ROSTER. Regarding the residualization box, the program has two methods for removing residualizing fish from an analysis. The first is to remove a fish that is observed on a known juvenile detector in any year after the defined migration year. The second is to define a date in the spring of the year following the migration year where any observations of fish are too early for returning adults and could imply residualizing fish instead. These fish are removed when the associated option is selected. Moving on to the Transportation tab, it is possible to tell the program to censor all transported fish at a particular transportation site. This is sometimes necessary when working with ROSTER in order to simplify the estimation process. Only sites listed in the Transportation Sites list will show transported fish in the resulting capture history file. Transported fish will be tagged as unknown at any other transportation site. It is also possible to treat all sampled fish as transported fish in the case where the assumption is that sampled fish are diverted to the raceway. Check the box next to treat sampled fish at the above sites as transported fish. This will only apply to fish that are in the selected transportation sites list above. The Advanced tab contains options that are not usually changed but can be under certain circumstances. In regard to the outcome determination box, the outcome or disposition of a fish is determined in one of two ways: removal trumps all or last detection. When removal trumps all is checked, any detection on a monitor that indicates removal, either sampled or transported, will supersede any subsequent observations. For example, if a fish is observed on a monitor that indicates transportation, even though it was later observed on a return to river monitor, the fish will be tagged as transported. If last detection is checked, only the last observation will be used, regardless of where it was detected prior at the site. Moving down to the Recapture Data Box, typically a recapture fish is censored and any subsequent observations of recapture and mortalities for that matter will be ignored. This is often not desirable in the case of a recapture at the point of release, which is typically seen in the data. To ignore recaptures at the release site, check Ignore Recaptures at the Release Site. Any subsequent observations will be treated as if recapture at the release location had never occurred. It is important that this is checked when using last detection data from PTAGIS, since one line of data per fish per site is normal. Finally, we can look at Miscellaneous. If a fish is observed on only a single coil at an entire observation site, it is tagged for removal. This is an artifact from the early days of pit tag detection sites on the Columbia River. Multiple detections were required to confirm if it was a legitimate detection. Pit tag technology has advanced quite far since then, and this option can usually be checked. This option may be changed by checking Allow Single Coil Detections. Usually, a fish not found in the tag file is removed. This occurs when you may be using a detection file that includes more tags than the ones you are specifically interested in. It is not recommended to use these additional detections as it complicates parameter estimate interpretation. Check the Allow Observed Fish Not Found in Tag File checkbox to allow these fish to be included in the capture history's results. The program generates warning messages that may provide useful information, but are not generally considered errors. So by default, these messages are not displayed. Check this box to display warning messages. Currently, the two types of warnings generated are that the program can't find detector data for a given interrogation record, or when a fish tagged as transported is subsequently detected downstream as a juvenile. This has been lesson 2 on using Program PitPro, in which we covered configuring the program to set up your run. Future videos in this series will focus on the results of your run. We hope that this video helps you get the most out of Program PitPro. Again, if you have any questions or comments in regard to Program PitPro, please fill out our survey as previously detailed. You can also contact Columbia Basin Research at web@cbr.washington.edu. Best of luck with your analyses, and thank you.